Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Sanni, and welcome to Eternal Present YouTube channel. I'm here with Melinda Molnar. We've been co-creating these beautiful talks, demystifying the wall of frequencies, and it's been a little break now, so it's really good to be back here with you, Melinda.
Yes, thank you, Sunny.
Yes. Today we are addressing this topic around trauma and what trauma is from the frequency point of view. And when there's a trauma in the body or experience trauma in this lifetime, what it really means to carry that frequency in the body and how to also reset it through frequency awareness. So we're just going to start diving deeper into that topic, which is very relevant these days. So many people experiencing this, carrying it in their experience in one or the other way.
Yes, Sunny, trauma. And even people who have not experienced trauma in this lifetime seem to be carrying experiences or emotional experiences of trauma. And really, what is trauma? What may be trauma to one person is not to another. Also trauma of your emotions, of your mental body and your physical body. There's a lot of disconnection from the physical body. So a physical body can go through a trauma without the person connecting to it. So therefore, the healing of it becomes more challenging because there is a disconnect. So let me see. Well, what was the question here, right? Is to how do we bring awareness that trauma is in all of your systems? It's not necessarily just in your knee or in your shoulders. Your being is a lot more than your physical body. By now, we've introduced that you have your spirit, you have your soul, your spirit also. So by the time you experience something on a physical level, it has already started in your unseen aspects of yourself. So how does one go about identifying and clearing out this trauma on a frequency level?
Yeah, exactly. Really confirming that anything that is manifesting in the physical body or physical reality, also including relationships and all the, like anything that we experience through physical senses, it's already happened in the spirit and soul, because nothing would be able to happen in this density of frequency if it wasn't already happened in a more subtle frequency. So that's again why it's so important to recognize the depth of this unfolding that is happening right now on a collective level on Earth. And again, this trauma can be, say, defined in multiple different ways. And technically, everyone who's come through a birth portal into this world, every human being who's been born has also a trauma of birth, etc. Like there's so many different traumatic experiences. Others, it's more subtle. Part of this human experience, sensory experience, while there are people also who are, say, running distortion patterns that lead people into situations where there is this kind of heavy trauma situations happening of, like, say, abuse, physical abuse, for example. So we're just going to look at all of that today a little bit deeper. And something that is behind any kind of trauma, whether it was more subtle or more intense, it's always connected to time. Okay, it is always connected to past. That's the one thing that is connecting all the trauma from the frequency point of view. Trauma is not happening in the future, right? It's always connected in the moment, what's happening to the past timelines through this moment. So even when somebody is in a traumatic situation, there is an atmosphere and frequency level patterning that led you into that situation. So even you being in a present moment and experiencing a traumatic event is actually connected to the past. And then, of course, what happens after then, like having a trauma in the body, for example, somebody who has been abused physically would get like a really quick heartbeat or really like anxiety attack or panic attack in the middle of the street when they are walking or when they're smelling a specific smell, for example, that takes them back to that moment of trauma. So it's always connected to past and the past timeline. And now when we start looking at it from that perspective, we can start seeing the timelines that are connected to that specific event. And it's almost like a thread. And as we start unfolding that thread on the frequency level, it literally starts liberating from the system, and it helps to set this person free. Okay, so I've seen people who've experienced extremely difficult trauma to unravel it very quickly on the frequency level, because it's like the timeline that has been stuck in the system is starting to unravel, and this person is liberating themselves into the freedom of the eternal presence, right? So this person is no longer engaging with that timeline where they got stuck in the past, right? For many people, depending how deep this kind of trauma is, because it can happen on a physical, it can happen on a soul level or a spirit level, it can be like super deep. Some of us talking about past lives, for example, way beyond this lifetime. It can be ancestral trauma, like say your body may be responding to something that your great grandmother went through, etc. What all the women or all the men before you went through. And right now, especially, we are purging out so much of that collective trauma of the system. So we may experience all kinds of things that is just leaving from the DNA and from our humanness as we are opening up to this, the new version of ourselves, which is always opening up from the presence. So many people who's experienced some heavy trauma, it takes some time. So even if I mention about that, it can happen quickly because I've seen it happening quickly. It can also take time. And that's why patience is so important with this. I work with individuals who very slowly peel back those layers when they work with frequency level. And that's, every spirit and soul has their own timing, because if you pull the rug under your feet too quickly, it'll just like be more destructive. So it's working with trauma on a frequency level is very, very unique for each of us. But the difference is that, say, are we only healing a superficial layer of it, or are we actually going deep into that root level? Which is, again, frequency awareness and frequency work is so essential. It's all about that, going to the very, very root location where that happened in the first place, where that environment for that trauma was set up, and then we unravel it from there, right?
Oh my gosh, that was so juicy. There are so many elements that came up. So I'm going to pin a few questions in here. One would be, let's say a person has not experienced physical trauma in their current lives, and their upbringing and their current situation seems what one would call should be happy. And then they start to experience mental and emotional trauma-like feelings, emotions, sensations, thoughts, and then the physical body will respond with some form of discomforting state. How would somebody like that even come to knowing, wait a minute, this is trauma that I need to work out of my system, and perhaps that it is from past life or ancestral life? So that's one of the questions, as to bringing this awareness to pretty much everybody, because like you said, every single person who's alive now has already come through the trauma of the birth canal. That's just one. Or the ones who've been lifted out of C-section, that's a different form of trauma. So that's one question. The other is, let's say this trauma, the origin of trauma in the timeline is residing 4,500 years ago. A person can ask, well, how will we find that? How will we find the inception of that trauma? Because somebody might say, I Well, this is where the mind comes in. I don't want to do all that work. I just want to get to the root, lift it out, throw it out. So that's another question. And I had a third one, which, okay, that's more like an observation. So us even talking about this, my body is responding.
Mm-hmm.
And the way, I guess, this work comes through me, or how these communications come through me, lately, I feel a lot of the collective. Then the minute I start to speak or intend, or something comes into my awareness, it's a lot of the collective is like, oh, there's an outlet. Let's go through here. So it's already coming through my body. And if I didn't know what I already know, my self-awareness, my keeping myself in the present moment, this could feel like an anxiety attack.
Mm-hmm.
But as we're speaking, I am paying attention to my breathing. I am holding myself in this present moment. So it is going through. So this is, I guess, already yes, it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
It can be done. It doesn't mean it will not happen to you anymore, some discomfort, but allowing it to go through. And that's a huge piece in also what we're doing is finding it in time and releasing it from time. You release the hold, you release what you're grabbing onto, and the mental idea of what it means. So I know that was a lot thrown back at you there. So I give it back to you, Sunny.
Yes, thank you, Melinda. It's so juicy, really, like looking into this deeper pieces behind these very difficult topics, right? That many people find difficult to even speak about these things without feeling, say, uncomfortable. And one of the things that is really important, and you also like saying allowing it to move through, is that it's such a big deception that we would need to go back and say work individually every single trauma of our system, right? Now, this is a different case if somebody has very specific, like big event that happened in a life, then we would specifically work with that because there's this whole identity around it. But talking about this, like all this, think about all of your ancestors, and you carry, like when you were born, you were the latest rendition of your ancestors, carrying every trauma that they've also carried in some frequency level in your DNA, unless, you know, you're awakening from that already at early age. In that there's also children who come here and they just like, I'm not carrying any of that, and they just kind of, these are the black sheep of the family that just like put their foot down and don't let any of that to go forward, right? So we all have our unique way of coming into this world. But say it doesn't mean that we would need to go back and undo or dig deep or do this whole individual healing work with all of that trauma or going back to that certain time like thousands of years ago to find that root, right? What is happening when you start working on a frequency level, you are automatically becoming embodied in that eternal presence where all the true healing really comes from. Because, and that's the true safety that comes with it. Because again, think about what safety even means, like being safe. Somebody needs to feel safe and experience safety in order to heal these kind of wounds. Because if somebody would be constantly opening the wound again and again, it's never gonna close and heal, right? So this is no different from a soul level, spirit level, also energetically. So there has to be the safety, and the safest place in this entire universe is the presence. It really is, because it's so easy for people to look for that safety from the battlefield, almost like all these 10,000 things manifesting in every direction, billions of manifestation, and look for that space from the outside. And it may be difficult to find that healing space because everything is fluctuating in this finite world. Like things are coming and going, breath comes and goes, thought comes and goes, our bodies come and go. Like there's this constant fluctuation, a finite aspect of this reality. And as we start coming deeper into this, what I call the Trinity inside, there's so many different ways to speak about this inner Trinity, but the body, mind, and spirit that you also mentioned, it's been spoken of in pretty much any religious or spiritual teaching. like looking at the old ancient teachings, they all bring about these three dimensions inside, or the Trinity inside, which like one becomes two, two becomes three. And from that three becomes 10,000 things, billions of different versions of the undistorted frequencies, right? But there are versions of that, and that creates all kinds of realities. And so now again, it's like a wild, wild west out here. And even being born here on Earth can feel like I just entered into this wild, wild west and this battlefield. But again, like finding that space within, which is already inbuilt into everyone, like that inner dimension of eternal presence, where as you start receiving the frequency of safety from eternal space, it means that it's completely stable. It cannot be anything else what it is. It's not fluctuating. It's not fluctuating based on what's happening outside of you, what has happened, what you have done, what you haven't done, how many times you've been a victim or haven't been a victim or whatever. None of that matters in that space, because that frequency of safety is coming from the eternal space. And so in the frequency awareness, we are undoing the identity and coming into that space so that everyone can find that dimension within themselves. And from there, a true healing of the wounds happen. And it quite literally is almost like when you tap into that eternal aspect, you're no longer time bound, right? And again, remembering back that every trauma is time bound. But when you find that timeless aspect inside of you and you can go there at will, you're literally resetting your system at will, right? You're no longer time bound. So you're no longer engaged with the time bound traumas either. And from that space, you're actually simultaneously in that point 45,000 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever you said, where, say, certain traumas may have started in the family lineage, you're simultaneously there as you're here. You're simultaneously in your future as you're here. There is no future and past anymore because you're eternally present, right? And from that space, a deep healing will start occurring. And it literally, you're sourcing that healing frequency from a space that is beyond this finite world. It's not limited by any of these timelines. And now that doesn't mean spiritual bypassing. It's really, really important to make that distinction, because spiritual bypassing would be to suppress the work that needs to happen or recognition that needs to happen in the system, bypass the teaching that was there, bypass, say, what those patterns that led you in that abusive situation, for example, or traumatic situation. That's bypassing, is to almost like not look into those things and shift them, but wanting to just go and put the band-aid over and pretend that everything is fine, right? That's not what we're talking about. Spiritual bypassing, somebody leaves their body and it just creates this deeper a gap or separation between the spirit and body. Now, embodying, so really embodying that eternal presence, you will absolutely not bypass what's happening, because you will just start seeing where that healing needs to be directed. But it's almost like this it's effortless space, meaning that yes, there can be challenges and you probably need to take some action and work and stuff like that. But it's coming from the space of leaning in rather than going in the battlefield with like the sword and stuff, or say hiding away into a cave. It's more like leaning into that eternal safety and receiving the resource to heal from that space.
Beautiful. Again, few things. As you're talking, I am feeling your words inside me, and I'm observing what's happening in the communication. So one is being in that eternal presence. And those of us who've experienced it, you know that it is hard to put words to it, what it is like, but it is a locking into such a knowing of safety and feeling it. Now, you don't want to go anywhere else. Everything is right here. Now, what that also brings up as question or for observation. Ooh, there was another part. The spiritual bypassing, I get to that, is, like I said, you're speaking words and I was feeling it. Now, in our past, in the past of humanity, many times the words that were spoken to people were distorted. Distorted, because that might ring quite negatively to some people, off the truth, right? Off the mark. And those people will bring in empaths here for a minute, and even people who are not empaths and they do feel, they just maybe not as, they can't verbalize it yet. When those words come in, feelings start. So abuse that can bring on trauma, it can be tended as easily as spoken words from one to the other. So we're gonna put this here as to bring awareness to the words that coming at you.
Yeah.
And that brings in your auditory field as to the environment you're in. Now let's come back to the bypassing, spiritual bypassing, because more and more things are diluting our current situations, and the human mind seems like in the Western world, in the hurry, we're always trying to look for quick, get it out, done. If I can make pain disappear in a minute, I'm going to choose that. And how would one know when they're bypassing? Because it is a slight difference between bypassing and between standing in it and just breathing through and allowing to breathe through. Like you said, you don't have to look into the story, but acknowledge it. Versus just very slightly, I'm going to do something else. Even if I listen to a meditation, which I'm thinking I'm helping the situation, but listening to that situation that just totally took my mind off of it. So what would be the question there? I guess your reflection on bringing more awareness to that subtle sensation in the body, and also that knowing in your mind, so that you can be kind of like, hey, just look here for a second and allow it to go through instead of bypassing.
Yeah, that is a wonderful question, and it is very much unique, right? There's not just a one way of saying like, this is how bypassing looks like and this is how it's not, because it would be so simple if it was. But it honestly comes back to that deeper self like inquiry, and again, like, as when we are going deeper into the frequency awareness pieces, it just naturally becomes more aware, because we become aware of what kind of, how our minds work, right? And it does require, I oftentimes, it may be even on my website written, like, if you're not ready to be radically transparent with yourself, don't come. Like, this is not for you. This frequency work is not for you. These sessions will not help you, etc. This really requires individuals to be radically transparent with themselves. And that means some kind of humbling, whatever that means for individuals. Some people speak about like the getting out of our own way and releasing ego. However, ego is a good thing, right? Ego would be the same, like an aspect of mind that is also like this earthly personality, like the small self, so to say. Well, you wouldn't even be a human if you didn't have that aspect in you. So it is part of your humanity, and it's all about making friends with ego and really recognizing how that can become your greatest ally instead of the one who's hiding the truth from you, right? Or looking or avoiding or whatever it is, manipulating. But it can become like that aspect of the mind that has been bypassing before can actually become the exposer of those, like, where do I need to get more on point? So again, frequency awareness just naturally start opening up that space, because it's like using the greater amount of your brain, like how they say that we only use like what 20% of our brain capacity, or even that, and frequency work is literally expanding that, and it's even been scientifically proven now, like working with like the meditative aspects, etc., can really start expanding the brain capacity as well. And there's going to be more. I'm really excited already for all the scientific research that is coming online on that. Now, the sensitivity that you spoke of before is that even a spoken word can be deeply triggering or traumatizing, or triggering all trauma that has been in the body that we may not even be aware of. I personally went through that experience. I was in the forest. I went to do like this what people call vision quest, but I didn't follow any specific tradition around it, but just the idea of going to the forest and fasting for a few days. And I went alone to the forest and fasted. And I think it was the second or third day when I had very intense traumatic response coming up. And I had a panic attack. And I'm someone who doesn't have a physical trauma, like in an abusive way in this lifetime. I haven't experienced that, but it was somewhere in my DNA, and my heart, I literally felt like I was getting a heart attack, and this was for hours, and I couldn't do anything about it. Even with this deep frequency awareness, I just had to let it go and let it roam. And I was just breathing and breathing, and it felt like I'm dying because it was so intense. And I was in the middle, deep in the forest, so there's absolutely no car sounds or anything even nearby. And only thing that I could hear for hours was these ambulance sirens in my ears, like everywhere, like right everywhere around my ears. And it just wouldn't go away. And I was really aware while I was in the experience that this is some kind of trauma release from my DNA lineage that I don't even honestly still today know exactly what was that about, but I realized that it was significant and it was leaving from my system. And instead of trying to fix it, right, because there's also like this pressure to fix everything or think that there was something wrong, like if somebody is responding to trauma, that there's something wrong in you. But we need so much patience in this time, because there may be things like that moving through our system, and only thing that we just need to do is to allow it to move, right? But again, with frequency awareness, as we can learn to lean on to that safest place that there is, and releasing into it instead of releasing to the wild west, where it's just like constant, like we need to be constantly aware and protect ourselves and put shields and whatever, like protect ourselves against like distorted spirits. Like that can get really intense when somebody is carrying a trauma. So even in that experience that I was having, I continued to go back into the one only safe place that I knew, and it's in the presence, and it eventually released. And the next morning when I woke up, that was almost the whole night I was in that experience, and I decided to leave a day early instead of like roughing it through like staying in the forest alone and continuing to starve my body like voluntarily, which like my usual state, I would do that, right? Because I'm just like going for it always. But in that moment, I realized like right now, I just need to take care of my body and be kind, and not to finish this quest, that this dedication that I made. I need to cut it short, go home and take care of my body, and let my body know that I am safe physically as well. I'm not alone in the forest starving, but I'm actually like eating good food and stuff. So having that kind of softness in these processes, if that kind of experiences come through, and I know that I'm speaking to many people here because there's so much of that kind of collective trauma even leaving from the body, it's really important, well, not try to fix it with the solutions that we know in this world, because it's never going to fix that problem. It's the same like the Albert Einstein would be referring, like if you want to find the true solution, we need to go to the higher space. So that is coming to humanity right now. And the more in presence you are, the more you become that embodiment of those higher solutions. So again, that was one thing. And the second is that be kind to ourselves and to our bodies. Let's be patient with our friends and people who we are in relationship, because it's crazy how much we are releasing trauma from the body right now and dealing with that. So allowing those spaces of softness, of letting go of our expectations and all of that and trying to rough it through, but like really just be honest, like I am vulnerable right now and I need to go home. I need to go and ask for help. I need to call my mom, whatever it is, but like really allow that space of support also in this physical world.
Thank you. That brings up the piece of self-love.
Yes.
And even more awareness of it, which when you're in the eternal presence, it's just there. And that self-love, that it's, not just the physical self, all of your cells, and the love in that space, it really is a beautiful, tender kind of love. And almost like to bring that into the awareness of our everyday lives, that you are the lover of yourself, and at any moment keep yourself in your highest, I'll just say highest ground, highest state, your highest care. And this is where also discernment comes in. If you think you should be doing this to finish something that you said you would, things change momentarily.
Yes.
You can be there with yourself every moment with that self-love and self-care, and to know that it's okay to act out of that. And more than okay, that is your guidance to act out of that and towards yourself anytime, anywhere.
Exactly. Yes.
I noticed that, yes, in many cultures, whenever even just the words expression self-love would trigger some people, thinking that it's egoistic, or there's some other words that they don't come to me right now, but pretty much that you think too much of yourself, or you think that you're more than others, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Because self-love is almost like the recognition that you are the child of that, the eternal light, and you are of love. So why wouldn't you love yourself the way you need to at this moment in your physicality, or your emotions, or your mind, all of you.
Yes, that is such like a omnipresent truth, so to say, that the deeper love, and some people experience also when we speak about self-love is also like the love of God or love of eternal, like our true source where we come from. And many people who's experienced trauma has experienced either the lack of trust toward oneself, like how did I get myself in this situation, right? So it creates this really uncomfortable doubt in own ability to keep ourselves safe, right? So that's a one deep kind of a wounding pattern that I notice a lot for people who work deeply or who are willing to heal these deeper wounds and looking into it. The other one is that not trusting God, right? And then when I speak of God, I don't speak of someone like just above sitting in a heaven and pointing a finger in judgment or something like that. I'm speaking this omnipresent source and our true parent, where we really come from. And if that intimacy between you and source is broken because it feels like I've been abandoned here, if God is present everywhere, why did I get into this abusive situation, for example? So those are the questions that the human mind is starting to create, because we don't, for one or the other reason, there's like this betrayal that has happened. So that's very, very common in a traumatic situations, is that the nervous system is actually still living in the timeline of betrayal or abandonment or being left alone to survive here. And that immediately creates this gap between you and God. or say even a gap in the self-love, like ability to love self, because there's just this really deep disappointment in the system, and that trust has been broken. And that's really heartbreaking. Honestly, we see even children who come here and they experience that because they have say copied that from their parents, or like inherited that from their parents, and it's already manifesting even in little children's life. And as people are starting to awaken more and more, and again into this embodiment piece, because I had somebody asking this question, like, well, dealing with the trauma, like if I do this meditation and I go into high space, and then what, right? When I come out of the meditation, my life is still the same, right? And I've done everything, right? I've done all the healing work possible and stuff like that. And those are the pieces where, well, frequency, somatic frequency is so essential, key in this time on earth, because it really is deeply weaving the spirit and body together. It's not something that we move out to the some higher dimension and then don't connect it here. It's all about raising the frequency of the body in that space where we can connect those different dimensions right here, so that there's only one reality and it's happening right here. And then the shifts that you make are going to be really manifesting also in the physical reality, because there's no other way. It's just straight up physics. You know, when somebody's embodied, it's going to happen in your body, right? So it's all about being in time, and it's all about that piece about, there was something really cheesy coming through, but it just escaped. Okay, I'm just gonna let it go. It will come again.
Okay, and
it's all about.
and so what comes for me, and I haven't put these in words yet, it just came, so let's see. So I shared with you that yesterday, for the first time, I saw the spirit body of a person. I was conversing with my friend, and the things I was saying, I was very, very much in the present moment, and so that ability opened up for me. And yes, this separation piece. So it's almost like looking in the human eye, right? You know that all of it is your eyes. That center part isn't separate. It's kind of like the same. You have your spirit and your soul and your body. None of it is separate. But many times, well, how we've had in the past, because it's almost like seeing only your pupil as it's by itself, and leaving the rest as it not being connected. So everything is one. And then when you're in that space, you can't even push out self-love. It's just there. So it's really, yes, coming into that space, sitting in that space, and you'll feel it, you'll know it. And then the thoughts that the mind brings kind of dissipate, because you're actually experiencing that they are not true. Those are distortions. Those are ideas coming from a past stuck kind of like memory that has a different resonance, that's off.
Yes, exactly. I love that image that you gave, or that picture that you painted with, like, then all that is really part of you becomes available and almost like digestible, and instead of being these multiple different particles, and then you need to like work really hard to hold yourself together and control your life and hold it together, but you just naturally become that full expression of who you are with all those resources. And it's obviously easier said than done. However, the good news is that as this frequency level awakening is happening on humanity right now, more and more people are accessing this space of freedom and being liberated from those old sandbags and the wounds and the traumas that we've been carrying for so long as like the collective humanity as well. And it's happening very quickly. So there's a lot more profound healing available, even what we call miracles, because as we are opening up to the higher dimensions and start embodying them here, like solutions from the higher ground that we can even think of are starting to come through. And sometimes it is in the moments of like fear and like challenge when that comes fully online, because it's almost like the more deeper in the 0 point we are, the more we can use everything that we experience for strengthening, rather than pulling us out of the center. So again, like thinking about those, like you mentioned, like the old track that is sounding a little funky, and replacing that with this new melody, right? That's all that happens when we start attuning on a frequency level. And say those, if we carry those patterns of abandonment or victimhood, it's almost like a lens, and then somebody is looking through that lens, so they would continue to create their future through that lens, through that abandonment and through victimhood, even if they would like keep it down, keep it like manageable, but they would still continue to hold it in their system, and it will continue to manifest in their life. So again, it's all about like taking those filters down one by one, and allowing them to unfold, and coming into this space where the new melody of your inner track is coming online. And that literally, because it's happening in that inner diamond or that inner dimension, like the Trinity inside, when the changes happen there, it ripples into all the 10,000 billions of manifestations around you. And then that's where we start seeing it in the physical reality. Now, I've seen people like just waking up one morning and it's like, okay, it's gone. That baggage, that trauma that I carried for so long is literally gone. And it's like that's going to start happening more and more. Others are, again, as I mentioned before, like peeling layer by layer, but the healing is happening. And it's really important to recognize this time that we are living in. It may seem even more intense than ever before, but it's actually, there's more healing happening than ever before simultaneously. So we'll just need to stay together and continue to be that mirror for each other, that it's possible. Healing is possible. And in this present moment, we really can set ourselves free from the trauma of the past.
Yes. There was, let me see, one thing you said that ideas to think, or there was something about thinking for solutions. That when you're in that space, in that eternal now, and the awareness of that, you don't even need to think anything. It will come to you. It simply does. That's just the nature of life. And for those who have not experienced or don't believe this yet, because I know I had these questions. I was already in frequency work, and I'm like, well, but then how come and how? And the mind always wants to know the how. I want to know the next 5-year plan, next whatever. And you won't. You simply won't, because what comes to you when you are embodying that awareness, it's nothing that you can think of with your mind. And it's that trust, and we're back to the trusting and the feeling of safety. And there was one other thing I forgot. Oh, the healing, that we are healing. So yeah, a lot of people say, look at the people in the world. It really is truly, we are healing. And even anybody just listening to this, there's healing. Like it's reaching your being. These frequencies transmit. So it is so wonderful that really it is literally organism healing from within.
Mm-hmm.
And it's allowing that to unfold. And those who are experiencing, to stand in there and say, just trust. They say trust the process. I've heard so many people say trust the process, yet they don't in their everyday life. Everything they do is still from the mind. What does trust the process mean? It really is, like you said, lean into the magic of the present moment and watch in wonder.
Yes, truly so. And that's the very reason why, say, historically certain awakened individuals have intentionally taken their bodies through difficulty, or even like, say, trauma of, well, fasting, for example, or like, going to meditate and fast for 40 days, 40 nights, etc. Like that's a really long time, right? And it's like training yourself to lean on eternal and not like get thrown out into the finite world when things get difficult, but like when things get challenging, that we literally train ourselves to immediately rely on eternal uh, over any other resource, because that's where all the true solutions really can come to us. And it's almost like the universal mind providing solutions for you, like thinking more clearly than your personal mind would, right? And I'm not saying that we should go do that and starve our bodies or anything, like go to find trouble. That's absolutely not what I'm saying, but I'm just pointing that out, that people have been looking for this edge for that very reason, is to learn how to rely on the eternal resource over what our human mind can comprehend even. And it's a very powerful place to be. And again, that's becoming more and more available. So somebody can be carrying a trash bag to bin and have that revelation today, because enough people are, it's fascinating, seriously. I know that that's happened. So it's like, it's so incredible how today, because more and more people are living on that, in that reality of deeper trust, where, for example, power abuse doesn't even exist in that reality. It's, and this is the same mechanic of how like great individuals would be healing, like say Gautama Buddha or Jesus Christ, etc. They would be healing people, and they would be able to heal these people without getting sick themselves, because they were literally walking in a different reality. They were right there in the same physical space with them, but they were walking in a different reality within themselves, in the spirit, right? So that disease doesn't even exist where they walk, right? And that kind of may sound like this woo, like this is only for like one person out of like 6 billion. That it's not really. It's a very simple frequency light technology that is becoming available, that as more and more people liberate themselves from the trap of the finite world and those old timelines that also include the trauma, etc., the more we start walking free, the more we're able to actually help each other as well, from that space of very stable inner stability from eternal. And it sounds for many too good to be true, but it really is just, it's becoming more and more available to people. I really want to emphasize this, because I can feel that there are people listening who are like, that, well, that's not possible for me because I've gone through all of this. But I tell you, it absolutely is possible in this second, right? It doesn't mean that it would happen right now. It may, but as you start looking into that space of eternal presence and tapping into those higher frequencies from that space, it's just so incredible how it works through every human being uniquely. And absolutely every human being, no matter what you've done or haven't done, it is directly available for you. And you can be changing your mind, even if you've led a certain kind of life all of your life, repeating all these patterns all of your life, you can literally be free from them tomorrow, right? That's all is possible. And like trusting your personal unfolding, however long it takes. But as you start looking into it, and as you start allowing that healing to happen from that space, it will happen. It's scientifically so, because the frequencies that you generate, you also generate your life from that space, right? And this is again, I have had honor to support many people to free themselves from the deep trauma in the physical body, or emotionally, mentally as well. And talking about even religious trauma and this kind of like more mental belief level traumas, it's honestly in every single session another trauma gets unfolded, and it's so like releasing its grip in people's minds. And it's so incredible to witness this, because as humanity we are becoming free from all that pain and suffering, and really stepping into this space of true empowerment from within.
Just hold on, that's just giving me a chill all over my body, even on my face. Yes, because it is so. It really is. And my journey in this is fairly a new one. I mean, I started about 12-ish years ago, but really the last 3 years strongly. And since last year, what's coming in these last few months, that I know I used to be the one not believing. I used to be the one asking all the questions. Well, how come this? How come that? Tell me and explain this to me. Explain, like all these. And it really is just lean into the eternal. It's almost like just say believe, the what is that cartoon, the Disney cartoon, that if you make a wish or a dream and you make a wish and your dream will come true. It is on that same mechanics. And now being in the space where I'm experiencing this myself on a daily basis, I'm seeing the wonders. It is available for anybody. And it is wonderful to watch how we as a collective are like going more and more and growing more in this direction, and excited to see as it's unfolding and where we'll be in this awareness.
Yes.
Of our divine self.
Absolutely. It is so wonderful time to be intense time for so many, but also at the same time, wonderful time. Like talking about even traumas that are happening in a different, the groups of skin color and people from different backgrounds and certain countries and cultures, etc., like the racism and all that kind of stuff. There's like all of that is shifting big way right now. And again, every single soul, every single individual who is waking up to this knowledge within themselves is helping hundreds of people around them. It's so impactful, and I really want to encourage to just continue to presence ourselves deeper and deeper. And I really feel like today's conversation has been kind of rich, and it's time to wrap up here. Thank you so much, Melinda, for being here and having this conversation with me. It's a very important topic to speak about. So we're looking forward to talk very soon more and release more talks.
Thank you very much, Sunny. Yes, this is so nutritious. Love it. Yes, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to again whatever will unfold next time.
Exactly. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.